So good morning, everybody. Today, before we go into the Torah portion, which is one of the most, it's a sad Torah portion because it's the selling of Joseph into slavery by his brothers and how he perseveres and comes out as viceroy of Egypt. So it's a tragic story, but it also has a happy ending and a very, very emotionally packed lesson. And I think so much in with what we're studying, the Bishar B'Tachan, how trust in God gets you through some of the most horrific parts of your life, as we'll soon see in the story of Joseph. Good morning, Margaret. But also,
Sorry, I'm late. Oh,
Good
God.
morning.
Yeah.
morning. Tomorrow is a very special holiday in the Hasidic Jewish calendar called the 19th day of Kislev. Tomorrow is the 19th day of Kislev, and Hasidim, which means people who study the Torah through Hasidus, Jewish mysticism, and Kabbalah, call it the Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus. So a lot of Jews meet each other tomorrow. They say Good Yontif. Now you'll say, what's going on? What does this mean? The Rosh Hashanah of Hasidus, of Jewish mysticism. So very briefly, it is the day where the first Chabad Rebbe, Rabbi Shneir Zalman of Liadi, Russia, was freed from Russian prison after about 53 days in prison. Now, why was he put into prison? He was put into prison on a very regular physical level, is because he would collect money for tzedakah for Jews in Israel, to help Jews in Israel who were suffering poverty. And it was a very difficult time to live in Israel. And Israel was run and ruled by the Turks, who were enemies of Russia. So people tattled on the Alter Rebbe and they said, he's a conspirator. He's siding with the Turks. He's looking to overrun the Russian government, the Russian Tsar. And so he was arrested for conspiring to overrun or to usurp the Tsar. Now, we know that's not true. The Alter Rebbe was collecting tzedakah. So behind the scenes, there was a spiritual war going on as well. The Alter Rebbe, who was a student of the Baal Shem Tov and the Baal Shem Tov's successor, the Maggid of Mezrich, was putting forth his magnum opus called the Tanya, which I explained a few times. The Tanya is what we call the Kabbalah primer. It is the greatest self-help book in the entire universe, based on Torah, based on Kabbalah, based on Hasidus, Jewish mysticism. When the Alter Rebbe wrote the Tanya, he took Kabbalah, the deepest esoteric parts of Torah, and he made it and explained how it's applicable to our lives. How do you take Kabbalah and Torah and make it relevant to every part of your life? That's what Hasidus is, and I'm going to share a few very powerful examples. But I think all of you have been studying together with me, and I say this is based on Kabbalah, this is based on Jewish mysticism, and Hasidus already understand a little bit how the text of this Torah, the stories of the Torah, and everything we study together gets a much deeper, relevant, beautiful lesson to us when we look at it through the lens of Jewish mysticism and Hasidus. It suddenly wakes up and it makes it so relevant and applicable to our daily lives. That is the power of Hasidus. So when the heavenly spheres said, how could this world in the 1700s get Hasidus? They don't deserve it. How could you share the secrets of the Torah with the simple Jew? So there was a heavenly debate going on too. So the Alter Rebbe was not only physically put into prison, spiritually he's put into prison. How could you allow this book to be published, sharing these deep secrets in a world that's dark, a nation that doesn't really follow necessarily all the Torah and mitzvahs? So that was the debate. So the story goes that the Baal Shem Tov, of course, the Baal Shem Tov had passed away, and the Maggid, the successor of the Baal Shem Tov, came into the prison. Their souls came to the Alter Rebbe, and Alter Rebbe says to them, "Why am I in jail?" And they said, "Because there's a heavenly debate going on. So should I stop writing the Tanya? Should I stop teaching Hasidus?" And they said, "Absolutely not." And 53 days later, we see the Alter Rebbe is freed from prison, which means spiritually, he's now given the red light to complete his Tanya and to share this wisdom and self-help and tremendous, tremendous teachings with the entire world. Now, one of the ministers of the Tsar, everyone heard of the Alter Rebbe. If you were an intellectual, whether you were Jewish or not, you heard about the Alter Rebbe. So the Tsar, the minister, came to visit the Alter Rebbe in prison. He wanted to see who is this great man. So he comes into the prison, and one second, I have to plug in my computer. And he comes into the prison. And the minister says to the Alter Rebbe, "I have a question from the Bible, from Genesis for you. Why, when Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, ate from the tree of knowledge, God then says, Ayeka, where are you?" God doesn't know where Adam and Chava were. He's God. Why does God open up his conversation? Where are you, Adam? Where are you, Chava? So the answers, Rashi, the classic commentator, before you reprimand, before you you talk sweetly to a person, you talk endearingly. If God would have opened up with, "What did you eat from the tree of knowledge?" he would have shooken Adam to his core. So God says, "Adam, where are you?" "I'm here, God. So tell me now, let's have a discussion. What happened here?" So Rashi says that God is using a softer tone so that he could have a proper conversation with Adam and Chava without chasing them away and scaring the wits out of them. You start off a conversation. Now, what did you do? You start off a conversation with more endearing terms. That's what Rashi says. So the minister looks at the Alter Rebbe and says, "Rebbe, I study Rashi. I know what Rashi says. I want to hear your opinion on this question." So the Alter Rebbe says to the minister, "Do you believe that the Bible, God's Torah, is eternal and exists and teaches for all generations, for all times, and under all conditions, for all mankind?" And he says, "Of course I believe in Torah, and I believe in God, and I believe in the Bible." The minister says. So the Alter Rebbe says, "In that case, I'll share with you my viewpoint, my answer as well," which is a deeper answer. And what does he share? The Alter Rebbe says, God knew where Adam and Chava were. God wasn't asking a physical question. "Where are you?" "Oh, I'm in the mall shopping." God to Adam and Chava, "Where are you in your life?
Yeah.
What have you done? What have you done?" And the question is a question that God asks every person every day. Ayeka, where are you? What have you accomplished? What have you done? What is your mission? What is your purpose? Do you know where you're heading? Do you know where you're going? Are you evaluating your behavior and your deeds every day of your life? So it's the quintessential question that God asks us, and we have to ask ourselves every day, where am I in my life? So the minister says to the Alter Rebbe, "Wow, thank you very much." And then he reports back to the Tsar and he says, "This man is not a conspirator. He's not looking to make a revolution, to overthrow the government. He is a holy man. He's a rabbi. He's a disciplined man." And the Alter Rebbe was then freed from prison. And this became known as the day of Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus, because the heavenly court decreed that the Alter Rebbe is free to teach Hasidus, Kabbalah, mysticism, and print the Tanya. And in the physical sense, the Alter Rebbe was freed from a physical prison. So that is why it's called the Rosh Hashanah for Hasidus, the New Year for Hasidus. So tomorrow we say Good Yud Tes, and we celebrate that we have access to a book of Tanya, to the teachings of Hasidus, which is not only now anymore one book, Tanya, it's been in many discourses and talks and writings, building on the authentic Torah, all given at Sinai, and slowly but surely revealed to the world. So you might ask, why wasn't Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah taught right away at Sinai when they left the desert? It was taught, but as the generations of the Jewish nation suffered persecutions, became dispersed all over the world, and we're no longer living by the holy temple, serving God every day, seeing God's presence in the temple, the fires, the offerings, the incense, the priests, the blessings, and we dispersed among the world, and darkness prevailed in our lives where we were being persecuted, and we drifted away from Torah and mitzvahs, sometimes intentionally, sometimes just because our parents didn't know what to teach us anymore. It was forgotten for many Jewish families. So then in the 1700s, when the darkness was so great, the Alter Rebbe, coming after the Baal Shem Tov and the Maggid, the two great leaders before the Alter Rebbe, saw that this knowledge needs to be taught. Otherwise, a Jew wakes up in the morning and it says, why am I here? What does Torah and God have to do with me? Really, it was good for the Jews in Israel. It was good when we had the temple, but now I need to make a living. I need to survive persecution and hate. I don't have time. I don't even know what this is all about. Came the Alter Rebbe and he brought the deepest concepts to every single Jew. That's why we call it is the Tanya, and the knowledge of Hasidism, Jewish mysticism, gives us access to the infinite reason of why I'm here, where I'm going, what is my purpose, what is my mission, how do I approach challenges in my life, how do I approach poverty, whether it's physical poverty, mental poverty, intellectual poverty. How do I approach everything and anything that comes in my life? If I'm feeling depressed, anxious, stressed out, everything and anything that we encounter in our lives, Hasidus builds on the knowledge of Torah with Torah of how to approach everything in our life. I want to share with you a few slides that my friend made for Yud Tes Kislev of just examples. And now you'll know that when we study our Torah portion based on Kabbalah and Hasidus, and I'll say to you, this is based on Kabbalah, and this explains it on a deeper level, now you understand what it is, as we discuss. Every time I say to you, but now let's look at the underlying reason. Let's look at how it pertains to us. Because as we discussed, Torah is studied on many levels. There's the story. Then there's the simple commentaries. And then there's why. What does this have to do with 2024, now 2025? Yeah, it's a beautiful story of Joseph. He's sold. It's sad. It's tragic. But what is the relevance to us? Why does it happen like this? Why does God allow it to happen like this? So that is what Chassidus gives us, the inner dimension. It's you tasting a delicious chocolate cookie. You go, wow, this is amazing. Then there are people that want to know what are the ingredients of the cookie. And then there's even deeper, how do the ingredients meld with each other to create this chocolate cookie? I'm using a very superficial example. That's what Chassidus is. Deeper, like the story that we discussed, Elisha with the oil. It's a magnificent story, how he saves a widow. But is that the end of the story? And then we discussed how the story of the oil is our story, where when you have nothing left in your reservoir, your emotional reservoir, how we can tap into that oil, that little bit of oil that still lies deep in the recesses of our souls. That's Chassidus. So if you're wondering why we need it, every story, every part of life suddenly becomes blooms and blossoms once you look at it through the lens of the knowledge of Kabbalah and Hasidus and what the Alter Rebbe gave us. So I'm going to share one or few slides, and then we're going to go into the magnificent Torah portion, which is one of my favorite
What do you mean?
Torah portions because it is so sad, so powerful. So as I open the slides, does anybody have any questions or comments or concerns? May I add complaints? Okay.
Always.
I'm sharing my screen. Here we go.
I brought these from home.
Okay. We're going to ask Margaret to read the first slide.
Okay, let me see. I don't know if I can see it. Where are
Okay.
we?
See my do you see my screen, everybody?
No.
No.
Share screen.
No.
Okay, let's share. Let's try again. Let's share. Let's see if you could see it this time. Okay, let's see. How about now?
I can't.
No, maybe turn your phone around or something.
I see the light up. Wait a minute.
Here, let's do it a different way. I'll do it a different way. Share.
Oh,
Your
remove-
screen.
okay.
Perfectly imperfect.
Yeah.
Oh, that. Yes, I see that.
Let's see if I open it big though.
Sorry, we have a dog who sees an iguana or something. Okay.
Here. Can you see it or no?
Yeah, I say light up your soul, perfectly imperfect. Is that
Oh.
what?
Yes. Can everybody see it?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Good.
Let's
Good.
pick-
Okay.
This, the
Oops.
struggle is human, perfection is for angels. Embrace the beauty of the struggle and know that God cherishes it deeply. Therefore, one should not feel depressed or very troubled at heart, even if he be engaged all his days in the struggle, for perhaps this is what he was created for, and this is the service demanded of him, to subdue the negative forces constantly. Tanya,
Okay.
Hmm.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions on that one?
No.
Okay, let's go to the next one. Hold on.
Oh, I see that.
Okay, Diane, you're up. You see it?
Light up your souls. Beauty is in progression, not perfection.
Okay, self-understood. That we always say that God is not looking for perfection. It's God for struggle, knowing you're trying. Okay, let's do another one. Robin, you want to read?
Sure. Light up your soul, mind over matter. Meditation is the tool for emotional change. It's okay if your feelings don't align with your behavior. Impulse control is the first step. Feelings will follow with proper meditation. The mastery of one's nature and desires is achieved when he meditates in his mind on the greatness of the blessed infinite God.
So you see at the bottom, I forgot to mention, on the bottom of each slide that my friend made, she took a part from the Tanya to show you the source of the lesson. So it's not like, oh, she writes nice poetry. She's sourcing the lesson.
I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I thought it said proper medication. I'm sorry. Okay.
With proper
Next.
medication, your feeling will follow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Proper medication. Let's do one.
Okay.
Okay, so Margaret, you're up.
Okay, light up your soul. For God or for self. Intention elevates the mundane to the divine. The fault lies in that his intention is not for the sake of heaven, i.e., to utilize the physical as an instrument in the service of God.
So basically, many times we have certain things we don't realize, like money. Money is really just a very materialistic, self-centered object. But when you use it for good, you use it to help someone in need, someone who's poor. You need to help rebuild now Israel, the kibbutzim and the homes that were bombed. Now something so mundane and so materialistic and so self-serving becomes elevated and money becomes holy when utilized for the proper thing. And the same goes with all materialism. So are you using what you have for God or for yourself, for selfish reasons? And what ends up happening, it's not that if you buy yourself a new Birkin bag, you'll feel miserable. But if that's all you care about, and we all want it, please, everybody, don't, if you see me with a new Birkin, don't judge me. But it means your life has to be for a higher purpose, not for materialistic pursuits, because it becomes a very empty life. Okay, Diane.
Light of your soul. The only thing in your control is you. The only thing you can control in life is your thoughts, speech, and action. Only the three garments of the divine soul alone should manifest themselves in the body. These being the thought, speech, and action related to the 613 mitzvot of the Torah.
Okay. So in other words, a person has to master our thoughts, our speech, and our action. No one else can control you. No one can tell you what to think. No one can tell you what to say. No one can tell you how to act. And what
try. No.
So this is what there's more, but I just wanted to take a few pivotal ones. So
These are great.
These are the things that the Alter Rebbe teaches in the Tanya. How to really have a wholesome life, a purposeful life, a life of mission, and also how to deal with things when they come your way. And this is the study of Chassidus, which we do when we study Torah. And this is why also I decided that we'll do a little bit of the book of the Gate of Trust to build our relationship with God. And it's, again, a lifelong journey. The study of Chassidus, the study of having trust and belief in God is a lifelong journey. It's not something you wake up in the morning and you're a new you. Exercise, dieting, a new facelift. Okay. Spiritually speaking. So for tomorrow, we'll say Good Yantif. And may the teachings of Chassidus inspire us to be the best version of ourselves. Like there was a great Chassidic Rebbe who said, when I go up to the pearly gates of heaven after 120 years, I'm not scared. I'm not afraid that God is going to ask me, why weren't you like Moses? Why weren't you like Abraham? Why weren't you like King David? You know what I'm afraid God is going to ask me? Why wasn't I me? Wasn't I Zusha? Why didn't I utilize my talents, my gifts, my energy to be the best version of myself? This is what God is asking of you. God doesn't want you to be someone you're not. If you were meant to be Dina, if you were meant to be Sarah, Rebecca, you would have been. You are meant to be who you are. Dina, Margalit, Robin, what's your Hebrew name? Rivka. Oh, we have a lot of matriarchs here. Freida.
Dina.
Wants to see who we are. This is a very important mantra you should have. Who am I? Not who do I want? Who is she?
Right.
So this is a very, very important, also based on Chassidus, based on the Alter Rebbe's teachings and Kabbalah. And I want to reiterate very, very importantly how all the teachings are all from Torah. This is not a new science. This is not a new age Scientology. It's all based on authentic Torah from Sinai. It's not contrived. It's not made up. It's not some Rebbe's genius. It's all sourced from Torah. And Alter Rebbe shows his sources even when in the book of the Tanya, he'll show you footnotes. This is from here, this is from there, and so on. And that's why when I teach, I also like to share with you, it's not my genius. It's all from Torah. When it's my opinion, I'll let you know, and then you'll realize it's not.
Yeah.
So we're now on Parshas Vayeshev. Jacob, to fill everyone in, has come back from the Holy Land together with his sons. He now has 12 sons. Remember, Benjamin was born on the way, and Rachel died in childbirth, his daughter Dinah. And Vayeshev, they are now settling in the land of Canaan in Israel. Okay? Now, Vayeshev connotes the term of serenity, tranquility. I'm settling down finally after years and years of living in Mesopotamia.
Excuse
But
me.
we see that life now is going to be anything but tranquil. Anything but tranquil. Joseph, his next to the youngest child, is 17 years old when the whole story unfolds. Okay? Very interesting. It says, Eila told us Yaakov, these are the generations of Yaakov. Yosef ben Sheva Esher Shana. Yosef is 17 years old. And Rashi says something very interesting about him. V'hu nar, and he was a lad. And what does Rashi say? He did things that a lad does, that a young boy does, such as arranging his hair, fixing his eyes, so as to appear handsome. So Rashi, you might think this is derogatory. Rashi's saying that Yosef was extraordinarily handsome, extraordinarily handsome. He looked just like his father Jacob, and the commentaries say Jacob looked just like Adam, the first human being, the first man. And Adam was known to be extraordinarily handsome. And he did what handsome people do. He puts himself in the mirror. He made himself look even handsomer. Now, when I read this Rashi, I looked at it a little derogatory, like he's kind of saying, oh, yeah, Yosef was a pussy. like Jap, a Jewish American princess. I always call my daughters. Okay, so, but Rashi is setting the tone to us understanding where Yosef is now, Joseph, and where he's going to be in 22 years. Here when we meet Joseph, his father gives him a gorgeous multicolored coat. By the way, his brothers also got beautiful garments, but he had a unique garment, multicolored. And we don't have time right now to go into the colored coat, but basically, Kabbalah Hasidus explains, it's not that Jacob gave him a multicolored coat and his brothers got plain blue coats. His multicolored coat that he was given by his father was indicative of who he was going to be, who his energy is, and what he had to accomplish in the world. The reason he didn't get along with his brothers is because his brothers were shepherds, it says in the Torah. They studied Torah and they shepherded their flock. They were insular Jews. Like if you go into Meir Sha'arim or Williamsburg, you have insular Jews. They stay with their own, they shop in their own stores, they have their own rabbis, their own synagogues, their own supermarkets. And they're insular Jews. This is how they view their mission in the world. Good morning, Laura. And then you have a Jew like Yosef, where Yosef is a multicolored Jew. His mission was not to be a shepherd and be insular. Yosef was given a soul that had a mission and purpose to transform the world, to become the viceroy of Egypt, a leader onto the nations of the world, feed the world, sustain the world, because he came up with the whole economical growth for President Trump. I mean, Paro. At that time, it was Paro. Now it's President Trump. If Joseph saw that the economy of the United States of America was going into the dumps, and he singularly concocted an economical plan to save the world from famine and destruction. That's what Joseph did. Now, the brothers don't understand that. Why do you have to go out into the world for? What's wrong with the way we live as shepherds? They didn't understand, and what you don't understand, you dislike and you hate. It's not that they hated him. They didn't understand their brother. They didn't understand that visionary, that greatness, that mission that he knew he had. So now his father, Vayishlach Yaakov, Yaakov says to his son Joseph, go check on your brothers who are out shepherding Elon Musk, somebody wrote. Go check on your brothers who are out shepherding the sheep. And now the story, the tragic story unfolds. Of course, we can't discuss every detail. There's more details to discuss. And he goes out to find his brothers. Now, he doesn't have Waze. He doesn't have Google Maps. He's on a donkey. Maybe he's on a little horsey. And the story says he meets a man. He says, did you happen to see my 11 brothers? They're shepherds. Or 10 brothers. No, 10 brothers. Binyamin was home with daddy. So the man says, yeah, they're over there on the north side, past if you watch Yellowstone, go over the mountain, go to the right. They're over there shepherding the sheep. So the commentaries ask, how did they know? How did he know? And the answer was, he wasn't a man. He was an angel disguised as a man. And this is all set by God to create what happens next. He meets up with his brothers. And he had shared with him his dreams that, if you remember the dreams that depicted him as the leader, and they look at him, they go, you're here to share with us another dream. We've had enough of you. And they take him and they throw him into a pit. They take off his multicolored coat, they grab it, they throw him into a pit. We're going to get rid of you. You're going to remain in this pit till the end of your days. And Rashi points out, and you'll see why this is so relevant, that it wasn't just any pit, cistern. It was a pit that had no water, but it did have scorpions and snakes. So it was not exactly, he didn't drown in the pit, but it was not exactly a safe haven, this pit. Pay attention, because this is the first pit he's going to be thrown in. Then his brother, the oldest brother, Uvain, leaves the group. And he says to himself, I'll come back later. I'll pull him out of the pit. I'm going to save his life. But it's too late, because they have a debate among the brothers. And one brother says, listen, we can't kill him. We can't kill our own brother. Let's sell him. There's going to be slave traders who pass by this path here on the roadway. Let's sell him. So they schlep him out of the pit and they sell him to a group of Egyptian slave traders who bring him down to Egypt and sell him to one of the most powerful ministers in Egypt, Potiphar. I'm abridging the story. They then take his coat, they dip it into goat's blood, they slaughter a goat, and they say to their father Yaakov, Oy vey, Joseph was killed by a goat. Look at this. His coat is covered in blood. And Jacob is inconsolable. He cries and cries and cries, and he doesn't stop mourning till the day he sees his son again 22 years later. Now, why is this relevant? You'll see soon why this is relevant to the story. But why does he cry? Because it's similar to the hostage situation. A parent feels when their child is alive. Deep down, because his child never had a funeral. His child, they didn't come with the body and show him, look, Joseph was killed. Here he is, let's bury him. There's no comfort because it's not knowing. So though they say to Jacob, yeah, Joseph was killed, deep down he wasn't killed. The connection between a parent and a child is beyond understanding. So because he feels, doesn't even know what he's feeling, but he feels an inconceivable pain because Joseph is not really dead. That he cries and cries. He doesn't stop crying because there's no comfort. He doesn't even know why there's no comfort. But we know why, because we're reading the story. Joseph is really alive. Now, what happens to Joseph? He's sold to Potiphar. Potiphar is a very wealthy, powerful man in Egypt. And he sees in Joseph, this is not an ordinary slave. This guy's no dummy. He puts him in charge of all of his commerce. He says, I'm putting you in charge of all my companies. You're going to be my CEO, COO, Chief Operating Officer. And this is how the Torah explains what happens. And I'm reading it to you because the Torah is showing us the metamorphosis, the transformation of a 17-year-old boy in a multicolored coat who sat by the mirror beautifying himself, and what happens to him over these 22 years of how the transformation of Joseph, the son of Jacob, becomes Joseph, the viceroy of Egypt, fulfilling his mission and purpose in this universe. And throughout the story, as I'm going to show you, you don't hear Joseph say anything. When you read the Torah portion, Joseph is like mute. You have to analyze the Torah portion to see what Joseph is really saying. But in the Torah portion, when you read the pages, there's no conversation. They throw him in the pit. You would expect to have a few lines where he says, "Take me out, help, save me." No. They sell him to the slave drivers. I'm the son of Jacob. I'm telling you, my father's going to pay you a ransom for me. He's going to pay you even more money than you're giving my brothers. Quiet. There is no conversation throughout the story here. You got to ask why. Now let's see what happens in the words of the Torah when he's sold to Potiphar. Something very interesting is said here. Vayehi ish matzliach. Lamed Tes Aleph. Let me go right to the Torah portion. Let me read it inside instead of using it in my notes. Aleph, period. And he was a prosperous man. He was a prosperous man. Interesting. Vayar Adonav, and Potiphar saw, Ki Hashem ito, this is pivotal, that God was with him. V'chol asher hu asa, everything that he does, Hashem matzliach biyado. Hashem helped it through his hands. In other words, he was prosperous. Hashem blessed his hands in the work that he did for Potiphar. So he is a slave at Potiphar's house, but he is extremely successful. His master sees, wow, my companies are even more prosperous. Hashem atzliach biyado, through his hand, God made him prosperous through Joseph's hands. And this is a very important point to say here, that God is leading the way here for Joseph's transformation. Now let's see what happens next. So you would say, okay, he's a slave, but he's a prosperous slave. He does well. He's not exactly in pain, because the master knows if he's fed well and he's taken care of well, he'll do a good job. Now Potiphar's wife takes a liking to this very handsome fellow. He's handsome, he's gorgeous, he's smart, and she starts pursuing him. She wants to have an intimate relationship with him. She wants to have an affair with him, but he doesn't allow it. He says to her, and this is now he speaks up finally. She tries to be intimate with him when her husband is not around. And what does he say to her? Listen what he says to her, something very interesting. You are someone else's wife. How can I do this evil with you? V'chatasi lelekim, and I should sin before God? I should sin before God? He tells her, this is the first time you hear him talking in the whole story. He says, I can't be with you. You're married. You're a married woman. It's adultery. I should sin before my God? Now, let me ask you, you're 17 years old. Your brothers betrayed you. No one came to rescue you. There was no rescue mission because no one knows you're alive. And now you are in the abyss of Egypt. There's no hope you'll ever be freed. They'll kill you if you try to run away. Now, his way out would be to be with her. Let me endear myself to the boss and his wife, and I'll have a happy life. V'chatasi lelekim. He doesn't look at God and said, you betrayed me, God, I'm going to betray you. You didn't care about me. Now I don't care about you. No, no, no. He realizes now the step one of his transformation. Realizes God sent me. God sent me here. I don't know what's going on, Almighty God, but I'm here for a reason. Step one of his transformation, he speaks in the name of God. By the way, it's a very interesting thing. One of the commentaries, this is a cute tidbit. Why doesn't he say, and we shouldn't sin before God? He says, I can't sin. What she does is not a sin, because he doesn't want to align himself with her. He doesn't want to create a partnership. We're in it together. We're going to be sinners together. He says,
Maybe,
yeah, go ahead.
maybe it isn't a sin for them in the other religion, but it's a sin for Jew.
But that's right. But he would be a partner. But also remember, this was before the giving of the Torah. He could have had 101 excuses. But they said they had the 7 Noahide laws. Do not commit adultery. Do not commit adultery. But notice he doesn't align himself with her and say, we shouldn't sin before God. Because by saying we means there's something there. There's a we. He doesn't even want to create any attention to that there's any alliance whatsoever. So he says, I can't sin before God. And then we know what happens. He comes home one day from work. She's ready and waiting for him. He's about to give in because he's about to lose hope. And he runs, and she pulls his coat off and he escapes. And she uses it as evidence that he tried to accost her and be intimate with her and violate her. And he's taken by his boss Potiphar and thrown into the second pit. Remember pit number 1, the brothers? Well, now the commentaries say it wasn't. What do you mean a pit? The prison was an underground prison. If you look at the prisoners freed now from the Syrian underground torture prisons, it's also 20, 30 feet underground. I see that the Muslim countries love pits. They love tunnels. They love underground. So they throw him into a prison, underground prison. The ultimate, the second pit. The first pit is when his brothers, and now he's thrown into pit number 2. By the way, why didn't he go with Potiphar's wife? So the commentaries say something very powerful. I have to share this. When he was about to give in, how much more could he suffer? The emotional stress that no one cares about him seemingly. And this might be a way out. He's about to give in, and he sees a visage of his father who looks like Adam. He was always told by his father it was knowledge that Jacob looked like Adam, and he looked exactly like his father. So he sees his father's face like a vision, and that's when he runs. So there's 2 beautiful commentaries. One is he realizes, you might say, oh, how bad could it be? He commits adultery. Okay, we can repent later. You know, they say do it now and repent later. But no, he remembers that Adam did one thing. He ate one fruit from the tree of knowledge, one fig, or some say it was an esrog, but it definitely wasn't an apple. Michelangelo made that painting and everyone thought it was an apple. It was definitely not an apple. Some say fig, it was a pomegranate. Some say it was a sheep, wheat, whatever. Definitely not apple. He remembered what happened with Adam, that one act of transgression changed the whole trajectory of the entire world. They were thrown out of the Garden of Eden. They had to work the land. Chava had labor pains. Thank you, Chava. And that's the story of our lives. So he remembered, don't say, what, who cares? One little transgression, one little act, big deal. Who's going to care? One act for the good and for the negative can change the entire universe. That's why one of the teachings of the Alter Rebbe in Chassidus and Torah is one act can change the universe, can tip the scales. Never underestimate the power of one candle, one light, one penny in the charity box. Never say, it's one little thing. One sandwich to a person who's homeless. You never know. And the second thing is when he saw his father's face, a vision of his father, like almost a daydream, he saw that his father had not given up on him. He felt that the connection was there. He felt that there was someone who was thinking about him and was looking for him. So when he said, I'm not the lost, forgotten son, I see my father means something to me. He runs. Because most children, when they leave home or they go into addictions, it's because they said, no one loves me. No one cares about me. Who cares about me? I'm the stupidest kid. I'm the dumbest kid. I fail all my classes. I never could do anything right. I come home, my mother yells at me. I go to school, my teacher yells at me. I'm in the basketball field. My friends yell at me that I'm a loser, a failure, a no good Nick. There's no hope for me. I might as well give in to the addictions and to the abyss and to everything I'm being offered. That's what happens to children who are lost. They feel no one loves them, no one cares about them. When Yosef sees his father's face, it's a sign to him, my dad didn't give up on me. He's going to come get me, I know it. And so he runs because he's not going to give in at that final moment to a transgression that can change the world. And he's put into a pit. Now let's see what happens in the pit. Another phenomenal, unbelievable story. The warden of the prison realizes, hey, this guy is not a scoundrel. He's not a typical prisoner, a lowlife, a killer, a murderer, a thief. He's something unique about this fellow. And the warden makes him like the chief of the prisoners. And again, he's in prison. Let's not minimize where he is. He's definitely in a hardcore prison, but he shines among the prisoners. And the warden sees this. And look what it says now, transformation step 2. Let's see what the Torah portion says something. Chaf, pasuk chaf. Give me a second, fast forward, because the wording is very, very important.
He's here. Oh, darn it. Okay.
That's fine. If you have to go, you have to go. Lamed tes chaf. Let me just go to it. Okay.
Amazing class. Amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so he's in prison, and look what it says. And he was there, bebeis hasayar, in the prison. Vayehi Hashem es Yosef, God was with Joseph in prison. Vayet alav chesed, and they gave him favors. He becomes the head of the prison. And it says, the keeper of the prison gave him like the run of the prison, kasher Hashem itai, because God was with him. Ba'asher hu asa Hashem atzliach, and everything that he did, God made him prosperous. The same terminology. When he's in working by Potiphar as a slave, it says whatever he did, God made him successful through his hand. And now it says whatever he did in prison, God made him successful, period. Not biyado, not through his hand. So now you have to understand, why didn't the story end with him being a slave? Why did God now have him put into prison too? A lower level, more suffering. Before, Joseph still had a feeling of biyado. I have a say in the matter. It's my hand. I'm doing a lot of the work. But God still made him successful because he has a belief in God. But now there's even a greater transformation. When he's put into prison, instead of saying, God has given up on me, I'm done with God. I'm done with believing. I'm done with trusting that this is all for the good. Like we learn in the book of trust, gate of trust. Now he even transforms himself into much greater person, where now he doesn't even believe anything comes from his own hand. It's all from God. He doesn't use the word biyado. He's not thinking, oh, I'll use my intellect, I'll use my brilliance, I'll use my good looks. It's all because Hashem, God wants me to be successful in prison, that I'm successful. So now there's a transformation. When he's a slave, he has trust in God, but it's through his hand. There's still an element of me. He's put into prison. He develops even a deeper connection to God. And it's not even me, it's all God. I don't exist. Einoid Milvadai, it's all God. And that's the ultimate transformation of a human being, where a human being is in such a dark abyss, a living hell, and he's able to stand up and say, it's God. God, whatever you want, whatever you think, whatever you're doing is for my best. And now, when Joseph reaches that total transformation and he metamorphosizes into a new person, that's when now the wheels change, and he's now going to soon be released from prison and appointed as Viceroy of Egypt. Now he's ready for his ultimate mission to become on top of the world and lead the world to belief in God, goodness, kindness, and also he saves the world through his plan, his economical plan. So now he's in prison, and we'll bring it all together. And he meets up with two guys in prison. Two guys in prison. One was the former baker of the king. They found a bug in the bagels, so they put him in prison. And one is the wine master of the king, the wine butler, who's put into prison because I think they found a fly in the wine. So he gets put into prison. He sees two fellow prisoners, and he says to them, "You're looking down and out today, guys. What's going on? You're looking down and out. Now, let me ask you something. How would you look if you were in a hardcore prison? You're going to smile? You're going to celebrate? Of course you're down and out." So they look at him like surprised. Who cares about us? And they start to tell him. The baker said, "I had a dream." The butler said he had a dream. And when they say, "Maybe you could help us," he says, "Me, I can't help you, but God could help you. Tell me your dreams." So he right away directs the energy to God. "I don't know anything about dreams, but with the hand of God, I might be able to help you." And he interprets the dreams. The baker gets killed, the butler gets freed, forgets about Joseph. 2 years later, he remembers when Paro says, "I had a dream," and no one can interpret it. The butler who's been reinstated says to Paro, "There's a guy in prison. He seems to have a talent with dreams." So they schlep him out of prison. They bring him to Paro. They clean him up. And when Paro says, "Can you interpret my dreams?" he says, "Me? I can't interpret dreams, but God can interpret dreams." So here you see that everything Joseph does and says is in the name of God. You see the transformation of Joseph from the 17-year-old, now 22 years, almost 22 years later, he's taken out of prison and he's appointed the Viceroy of Egypt. And he creates the whole plan. When they have 7 years of famine, they have 7 years of prosperity. You should put away food for the 7 years of famine. We're not going to go into the dreams right now. There's no time. And this is who Joseph becomes. Now I want to go back very quickly and sum up the story and explain what went on behind the scenes, even though I kind of alluded to the transformation. We're all seeds. God plants us into this world. This is based on Hasidus Kabbalah analysis of the story. We're all seeds. And last year, one of our main mantras that we said all year, that all of us in the class discussed, almost every class this came up, was the question, and we'll discuss it next week when he meets up his brothers. Were you sent on a mission or were you sold? How do you look at your life? Was I sold and that's why I'm here, or was I sent by God? Now the question now this year, based on this class, the question is, you're a seed, I'm a seed. Are you buried? Are you buried and forgotten as a seed, or will you blossom as a seed? What is your story? Are you buried, or are you blossomed, planted? Ask yourself the question. You're sitting in your chair in the dining room. Was I buried here in this world to be forgotten? I'm a nobody. I'm one of 100 million people who cares about me, who looks at me. Or were you planted in this world to accomplish a goal and a mission? Joseph could have looked at his life when he's thrown into the pit. I'm buried. I'm in a pit. What do you expect from me? That's why Rashi, based on Kabbalah, says there was no water. How could a seed grow without water, without sunshine, without light? That's why when his father cries and cries and cries and cries spiritually, his father's cries are watering the seed that's in a pit. His father's tears water him and turn him and make him grow to become who he is. So you see the change of the seed that's buried. He finds out, I'm not buried, I'm planted. I'm planted. That's why his father cries and cries. Kabbalah explains these tears, these metaphysical tears, the spiritual tears are what watered him into growing to who he could be. And he begins to look at himself that I'm a seed that's been planted, not buried. Twice he's put into a pit. But instead of looking at himself that he's a dried out seed, there'll be no growth from the seed. His seed is planted and it begins to bring forth fruit. This is the true story. First, he's a slave. A slave is a slave, but he's a prosperous slave because, in Jewish law, when you take a slave, your slave has to eat rib steak if you're eating rib steak. If you're resting on Shabbos, your slave has to rest on Shabbos. There are very strict laws of slavery in Jewish law in the days when we had slaves. That's why every 7 years you have to free your slave. You can't keep your slave forever. So slavery connotes, yes, I'm a slave, but I have freedom. If I prosper, my boss prospers. If my boss allows me to do my work, then the boss prospers. The boss wants the slave to have enough sleep and be fed. Yosef was running his boss's companies. You think he wanted to torture? He wanted Joseph to succeed. But a prisoner, they don't care if you're happy, sad, well-fed, well-dressed, or take a shower in the morning. A prisoner is meant to be broken. So from a slave who works with the hand of God, but through his hand, and then he becomes a prisoner where everything is God only because there is nothing for him there. He becomes who he becomes. He's planted and he prospers and he brings forth tremendous fruit. No pun intended, but he fed the entire world. Egypt became the most powerful country during that time because everyone needed to come to them to buy food. There was a worldwide COVID hunger. Think of it in terms of COVID. They were the only ones that had food. Why? Because Joseph says to Pharaoh by the dreams, there'll be 7 days, 7 years of prosperity based on the dream. And then there'll be 7 years of depression.
Right.
There'll be no food, there'll be no water, there'll be no produce. So take warehouses, fill them up and fill them up and fill them up and fill them up for 7 years. And then for the 7 years of famine and hunger and depression and recession, when the economy and stock market collapse, everyone is going to come to Egypt for sustenance, food. And that's what happens. He saves single-handedly the entire world. This young fellow. Now, do you see God's plan? God took a Joseph. And because of Joseph's tremendous perseverance and how he allows himself to be a conduit of God's mission for him, becomes who he is. It was so easy for him to just go into the pit and stay there, become a slave and stay there, go into prison and stay there. He utilizes his talents, his connection, his godly soul to become the best version of who he is meant to be. So now the final question as we end the class. is you have to ask yourself every day, was I planted in this world or was I buried in this world? And next week, we're going to say, was I sent or was I sold? Same idea. Are you buried or are you planted? You have to look at your life and say, I have a mission, I have a purpose, I am being planted in this world. Now I have to produce the fruits. So moments when you're feeling angst, when you're feeling depression, anxiety, and we all have it, and some of us go through very challenging things in our lives. I can't even imagine what some people go through at times. I hear their stories and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't know how I could survive that. You have to say to yourself, I was planted here. God has a mission, a purpose for me. I'm not here because, oh, my parents made a mistake. They didn't really mean to have a third child. Oopsie, I'm a mistake. Or look at me, I turned out to be a mistake. Look at me. No one likes me. Everyone hates me. I'm a failure. I'm a schlemazel. Everything I touch turns to earth. Nothing I do is good. I'm a horrible person. And I don't even know why I'm alive. How many times have you heard people tell you that? I don't even know why I'm here. I have no use. And no one has use for me, and I have no use for myself. And in those moments, tell yourself, I was planted here. I'm not buried, I'm planted. So with that in mind, tomorrow is a very special holiday. Yud Tes Kislev, give a little extra tzedakah, say a little extra prayer. And most importantly, 18 minutes before sunset, find a way to light your Shabbos candles. You have no idea how this one mitzvah can transform the darkness.